Well, it dates back around 750 BC. The place is Jerusalem. And the person we're going to focus upon this morning is Jehoshaphat. And really, I think one of the reasons why I want to talk about Jehoshaphat, Father's Day is coming up next week. I was thinking about my dad, and he used to call me by about every name except for Jimmy. George Washington, Wellington, and Jehoshaphat. And so, as I was thinking about my dad, I thought about Jehoshaphat. I said, you know, we really need to talk a little bit about Jehoshaphat. Plus, I just like saying it. Go ahead, you want to say it? Go ahead, say it. Jehoshaphat. Oh, I love it. That's why we're doing it 2 weeks, so I can talk about it. King of Judah. Good king. Son of Asa. We just read that in 16. During his reign, there was peace and prosperity. Because Jehoshaphat was a man of the book. Not the whole Bible. The whole Bible didn't even exist at that time. Just the Torah, the Pentateuch, the first 5 books. More than anything, Jehoshaphat wanted to do what God asked. God honored him for his commitment, for his devotion, and made Jehoshaphat great. So I hope you'll agree with me this morning when I say that I think we need more people in the world today like Jehoshaphat. Not perfect people, because we are going to discover by the end of next week that Jehoshaphat wasn't perfect. There were some things that he did that weren't quite right. But people who are devoted to God, and they really want to help and benefit God's people. Now, following up on what Andy Dearman said this past week during Adult Bible School, as he shared about Israel, I want to remind you that there was a time in Israel's history when Israel did not have a king. God was their king. And the ones who kind of oversaw the nation were the judges. But if you recall, if you're familiar with the Old Testament, the people over the course of time started to take God for granted. They did not listen to the judges as they should. They did not worship God. They did not serve God as they should. And we're eventually told in Judges chapter 21, verse 25, that everyone basically went around and did whatever they wanted to do, whatever they saw fit. And so it was that God raised up a prophet by the name of Samuel to lead the people. All of Israel knew that Samuel was established to be a prophet as well as a judge over the people. And when he was older, he knew that his life was going to come to a close. He selected his 2 sons to follow him. Now, unfortunately, Israel did not do a very good job of always listening to Samuel, nor did they listen to his 2 sons. They refused to obey. And they came to Samuel one day and said, give us a king! We want a king! We want to be like all the other nations around us. Give us a king. So Samuel took the request to God. God says, well, I don't really think it's going to be in their best interest, but okay. I'll give them what they want. I'll give them a king. Okay, do you remember who the first king was? Saul. Saul was the first king. He was from the tribe of Benjamin, which in the days of the judges, of which we just spoke, was almost annihilated. I mean, the tribe of Benjamin was almost wiped out. But Saul, he was tall. He was handsome. And at first, he was humble. And Saul began his reign with a brilliant victory over the Ammonites. And all the people who had been told, you know, maybe a king isn't such a good thing, well, after they saw this victory, they said, hey, I don't think we should worry about this anymore. This king is a good thing. But success rapidly went to Saul's head. And humility gave place to pride. And he decided to do whatever he wanted to do. So he went out, and one day he was making sacrifices to God, which you might think, that, hey, that's a good thing to do. But God had given that function to the priest, not to the king. And so all of a sudden we start to see how Saul has this presumed self-importance idea about himself. Saul, you see, had deliberately disobeyed God, causing God to tell Samuel, you know, I'm kind of grieved that I made Saul king, because he's turned away from me and has not carried out my instruction. So Saul really reigned fairly unsuccessfully from 1049 BC to 1009 BC until the day he took his own sword and he fell on it. Next in line of the kings, you know who came next, right? David. Although he was anointed as a king as a boy, he didn't take the throne until after Saul's death. David was short in stature. According to the scripture, he was ruddy. Of beautiful countenance, handsome, of immense physical strength, and he had some great charisma. He was a man of war. He was prudent in speech, very brave, musically sound, and very religious. His most recognized claim to fame was God's promise that David's family should reign forever. Remember Isaiah 11, verse 1? A shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse. Who's Jesse? David's dad. And from his roots, a branch, in reference to the coming Messiah, Jesus Christ, will bear fruit. And after Saul's death, David was made king over Judah. 7 years later, he was made king over all Israel. He was 30 years old when he became king. He reigned from 1009 BC to 969 BC. Third king, Solomon, became king in 971 BC, possibly 2 years before his father David died. He reigned until 931 BC. Solomon's mom, Bathsheba. And though not in line for succession, he was chosen by David and approved by God to be David's successor. Solomon, therefore, inherited the throne of the most powerful kingdom at that time. Solomon's rule was an era of peace and prosperity for Israel, with vast business enterprises and great literary accomplishments. Remember, God one day said to Solomon, to ask for anything that you want, and God would give it to you. He could have asked for wealth, he could have asked for power, but no, he asked for wisdom. Wisdom to take care of God's people. And that pleased God so very much, so that God not only gave him wisdom, but he also gave him the wealth and the power and the prestige and the important task of building the temple of God. Now, after the death of Solomon, things turned bad. They turned really, really bad. The kingdom actually was divided. A northern kingdom was established, made up of 10 tribes, called Israel. And 2 of the tribes, Judah and Benjamin, they formed the southern kingdom called Judah. And the date of that division was about 930. Now here's the sad fact. All the kings of Israel, the northern kingdom's kings, eventually turned their backs on God and practiced idolatry. The worst of the northern kings served Baal and not God. In the southern kingdom, many of the kings of Judah also served idols, but 5 of them, 5, served the Lord faithfully. Now, it wasn't like the kings were always really bad or really good. When it comes to the kings, those who were really bad were partly good at times. And those who were really good were partly bad at times. But one of the 5 really good kings was Jehoshaphat. And we pick up the story of Jehoshaphat in 2 Chronicles 17. Reigning over the southern kingdom, Jehoshaphat is the 4th king over the southern kingdom of Judah. And in this day, Jehoshaphat was the most decorated king since Solomon. He did so many things right. He was a model team builder. He wasn't afraid to delegate, to form alliances, to put his trust trust and faith in the Lord, or to identify and utilize other people's talents. Jehoshaphat did not think too highly of himself, which, if you remember, was Saul's problem. He knew where his own strengths ended and where other people's strengths began. He was aware of his own shortcomings, and so he surrounded himself with people who were experts, who could do the things that he couldn't do. He never allowed his pride to get in the way of his objectives. His attitude, his conviction was to always seek the most excellent way, and of course the most excellent way was God's way. He evidenced wise and sound judgment. And in nearly, you can hear that, in nearly all of his ways, he regarded himself, others, and God. Next week, we're going to see where he 2 times didn't do that. Now, if you remember what we read earlier this morning, Jehoshaphat's father was Asa, and at the end of Asa's life, he comes up with this foot disease, which eventually led to his death. Since Asa was not very mobile for a few years, Asa and Jehoshaphat reigned together. So Jehoshaphat reigned for 25 years. Most of those first 3 years, he reigned with his dad, Asa, and for 22 years, he reigned on his own. And his reign was a good reign. Jehoshaphat was one of the best kings, right up there with Josiah and Hezekiah, and of course, as we've already mentioned, Solomon. Jehoshaphat led enormous reforms. He removed the altars of the Baal. He tore down the Asherah poles. And he directed the people's attention back to God. So, what do you think Jehoshaphat possessed? He possessed good, sound judgment. The difference between Jehoshaphat and the other unrighteous kings in Israel and Judah was that he had good judgment. And that's what I think we need in our leaders today. Good judgment, good sound judgment. That's also what the nation of Israel and Judah really needed in that day. And I'll tell you this, in fact, I think as Christians, as we do some self-reflection, you and I need some sound judgment. Now, this being the case, I want to look at Jehoshaphat's good judgment. And in the process, I want to ask 3 questions. Now, on account of time, I can only ask one of those questions this morning. We'll pick up the next 2 next week. So the first question pertaining to good judgment as far as Jehoshaphat is concerned is this. Do you realize where your strengths end? In other words, a person who possesses good judgment has a self-awareness of his or her strengths and weaknesses. I mean, during a job interview, people are asked, what are your strengths? And what are your weaknesses? And when it comes to your strength, talk. But we have such a hard time admitting our weaknesses. I remember when I graduated from seminary, and I don't know if they did this at your seminary, but they give you some counsel about interviewing. And of course, we're going to interview with churches and with PMCs. And they said, okay, champion your strengths, but a really good idea with your weakness. Why don't you pick a strength and make it your weakness? Well, and like this, here's one that you can do. I am so energetic and passionate about my work that others cannot always keep up with me. See? A strength depicted as a weakness. But Jehoshaphat, he was transparent. He realized and he admitted his strengths and his weaknesses. He knew where his strengths began and where they ended. I mean, how many presidents of the United States, how many senators, how many representatives, how many of us ever admit our weaknesses? Good judgment requires being aware of our own strengths and weaknesses and then dealing with them honestly. I read recently of a 10-year-old boy who decided to study Judah, despite the fact that he had lost his left arm in a tragic car accident. The boy began lessons with an old Japanese judo master known as a sensei. The boy was doing well, so he couldn't understand, after 3 months of training, why his judo master had taught him only one move. Am I not getting this, or what? Sensei, the boy finally said, shouldn't I be learning more moves? This is the only move you know. But this is the only move you'll ever need to know, the sensei replied. Now the boy, he didn't quite understand what he was saying at first, but he trusted his teacher, he believed in his teacher, and so the boy kept training. Several months later, the sensei took the boy to his first judo competition tournament. And he was surprised. The boy easily won the first 2 matches. He only had one move. He only knew one move. The third match, however, proved to be more difficult. After some time, his opponent became impatient, and then he let down his guard just for a moment, at which point the young boy deftly used his one move again to win that third match. The boy was still amazed at his success. He was now in the finals. This time, his opponent was bigger, stronger, and more experienced. And remember, he doesn't even have a left guard. For a while, the boy appeared to be overmatched. Concerned that the boy might get hurt, the referee stepped in and called timeout. He's going to stop the match. When the sensei intervened and said, no, let the boy continue. Soon after the match resumed, the boy's opponent made a critical mistake. It only took a moment. He too dropped his guard just for a moment. Instantly, the boy used his move to pin him. And the boy won the match in the tournament. He was the champion. On the way home, in the car, the boy and the sensei reviewed every move in each and every match. And then the boy summoned the courage to ask what was really on his mind. Sensei, how did I win the tournament with only one move? You won for 2 reasons, Sensei answered. First, you've almost mastered one of the most difficult throws in all of judo. And second, the only known defense for that move is for your opponent to grab your left arm. The boy's biggest weakness had become his biggest strength. The fact of the matter is that we will succeed in serving God when we too realize what our strengths are and what our weaknesses are. As Christians, we are both individuals, yes, but we are also a community of faith, the body of Christ. And as your pastor, as your spiritual guide, I must know my strengths. And where my strengths begin and where they end. And where they end, I need to surround myself with people whose strengths are my weaknesses. In other words, the Christian faith is built on codependency. If we are to be all that God intends for us to be, we need to work together. Each one using his strengths as a member of the kingdom of God. So as King Jehoshaphat was well aware of this fact, prior to the sermon I read up to 2 Chronicles 17:6. Now I'd like to pick up in verse 7. In the 3rd year of his reign, Jehoshaphat sent his officials. Now I'm going to be reading a whole bunch of names here at this point. And what I also learned in seminary was this, that there's a whole bunch of differences of opinion on how to pronunciation of names. So I was always told just to pronounce them with confidence. And everyone will believe that you said them correctly. I'll see if I can be confident and pull this off. So he sent his officials, Ben-Hail, Obadiah, Zechariah, Nathaniel, and Mechaniah, to teach in the cities of Judah. With them were the Levites, Shemaiah, Nethaniah, Zechariah, Asahel, Shemiramoth, Jehonathan, Adonijah, Tobijah, and Adonijah. And with these Levites, the priests Elishama and Jehoram. And they taught in Judah, having the book or scroll of the law of the Lord with them. And they went around throughout all the cities of Judah and taught all the people. Let's stop there. I think this is a really cool thing that Jehoshaphat is doing. Recognizing where his own strengths end, aware of his own limitations, he has recruited a team of religious officials to conduct some of the religious instruction and education in the various cities throughout Judah. He couldn't do that by himself. One person couldn't do that. He wouldn't have enough time. So he got the best. He got the experts and asked them to do it for him. So he recruits these specialists whose strength is to teach the religion of Israel. One of the strongest characteristics of Jehoshaphat, you see, is team building. He's an amazing team builder. This team, created to do religious teaching, notice its makeup. It had 5 lay people. It had 9 Levites and 2 priests. Kind of sounds like a Presbyterian task force to me. Now drop down to verse 14. 2 Chronicles 17. Not only does Jehoshaphat recruit religious officials, but he also recruits military specialists. In the region of Judah, he recruited Adnah, the commander, with 300,000 mighty warriors. And next to him, Jehonaham, the commander, who with 280,000. And next to him, Amasiah, son of Zikri, a volunteer by the service of the Lord, with 200,000 mighty warriors. And in the region of Benjamin, he recruited Eliada, a mighty warrior with 200,000 armed with bow and shield. Next to him, Jehoshaphat, with 180,000 armed for war. And these were in the service of the king. And then you can flip over to 2 Chronicles 19:5, and Jehoshaphat appointed judges in the land, in all the fortified cities of Judah, city by city. Later, he recruited musicians. Jehoshaphat knew his strength. He knew he couldn't sing. And he knew he would have to utilize other people's strength for a strong kingdom. And the same is true for the church. Each person should utilize his or her strength in service to the Lord. I mean, look at our staff. We have Lorraine Benjamin, parish nurse. I don't know enough about medical stuff to help you out. So we have Lorraine. We have Linda Bailey. I'm telling you, the best associate pastor and pastoral care that I've ever met. And how about those prayers? Okay. And then we have Wendy. I mean, come on, I can't sing a note. I can't play an instrument. And Rachel, with all the administrative stuff that takes place. But remember those military leaders that Jehoshaphat had, and hundreds of thousands of people under them? I mean, each one of those people are volunteers, people in the church using their gifts, using their strength to make this such a dynamic church. Same thing took place at the Gulf Bible School. Jane Linville oversaw it. But we had people working on the music, people working on missions, people working on sound, others with food. Look at how many school uniforms were raised because there was a group just working on missions. A church is only as strong as the strengths that each person applies. So are you using your strengths, your talents, your gifts here at Desert Pine? I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses. In humility and with a willingness, I need to surround myself with people who are strong where I'm weak. There's a great verse in Romans chapter 12, verse 3. Paul writes to the church in Rome, "By the grace given to me, I say to every one of you, not to think more highly of yourself than you ought to think, but to think with sober discernment, sound judgment, as God has distributed to each a measure of faith." Are you too proud at times to ask for help? Or to accept it when others offer it to you? Do you recognize where your strengths begin and where they end? There's some great conventional wisdom that is caught up in some fun contemporary impressions, at least I think there, because they kind of come out as tongue twisters. I want to close this morning by sharing 4 of them with you. He who knows not and knows not that he knows not, he is a fool. Shun him. Do you get that? He who knows not and knows not that he knows not. I mean, somebody doesn't know anything about a topic, but pretends to know. That is someone you want to avoid. That person's not going to have much success. He who knows not and knows that he knows not. He is simple. Teach him. See? Indeed, not, that person's teachable. He doesn't know everything, but he admits it. He doesn't know, and he's willing to learn and accept instruction. He knows his limitations, so let's assist that person and teach that person. Number 3, he who knows and knows not that he knows. He's asleep. Wake him up! This is the person who has knowledge, has experience, but doesn't think he has knowledge. Wake the person up! He or she has something to offer. They should use what they know. And the last one, he that knows and knows that he knows. He is a wise man. Follow him and accept his counsel. Now listen, he that knows and knows that he knows. I don't think that's being said in an arrogant way. To someone who simply thinks they know everything. No, no. This refers to a person who has self-awareness. He even knows that he doesn't know. He knows what he knows, but he also knows the limits of his knowledge. He knows, in fact, what he does know. That's a wise person with sound judgment. And that is the example we have in Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat had incredible wisdom. Jehoshaphat had incredible knowledge, but he knew exactly what he did know, and he knew exactly what he didn't know. Thus, he knew what his strengths were, and he recruited to shore up his weaknesses. Yes, Jehoshaphat, I think, is a great role model concerning good judgment. Jehoshaphat teaches us to have good judgment in life through self-awareness. We need to know where our strengths begin and where they end. We need to use our gifts so that in working together, we can build up the body.